Okay, so this is some tips about science in RP-1, right? Science you unlock by doing experiments, and it can be a little overwhelming to look at the giant tech tree and what you actually need to do and what to research and everything. So here's some tips for that. First of all, you start off with only a little bit of science, so you need to launch your first sounding rockets like right away almost, else you're gonna run out of science to do anything with. But that's not really an issue. You can get a big amount of science from the first thermometer, the barometer, and all the other things, the reports and such. But then what do you research? Something which I said in an earlier video is that you'll want to rush for one of the capstone contracts at the start of the game, and that is either the advanced biological capsule for suborbital research, or for suborbital rocket development you want to go for the 5 megameter, and that involves usually taking aluminium tanks and then post-war or early rocketry or something with multi-stage B on top. Right? You could go with early material science and then it becomes easy. But if you do that, then it's better to just rush this one first, because this is less tax, right? This is 4, this is 2, right? The cost of them, so it's 2, 4, and then you probably grab one of these engines, so that's 7 combined. Whereas this one, the cost alone is 8, right? So this is already a lot more, and then all the other tax you need. Right, so if you wanna, unless you can do a caveman one using just aluminium tanks, just go grab this contract first. The advanced biocapsule is not a good experiment for science. This is just for the capstone. The actual science that is good is you want to do the thermometer and the barometer at the start, and then you also want to do the biological sample capsule. If you launch this to flying high above 40 kilometers and also to Earth low, right, so above 140 kilometers, and just keep launching this sample capsule, you'll find that there are some optional contracts with the biocapsule that you can keep launching, right? But after that you will not have completed it, right? You need to launch multiple. Don't be surprised if you need to launch this like 8 or maybe even 10 times, right? You need to launch this a lot. But it's worth it, because the rockets you launch this on are just less than a ton. They're very light, they're very cheap. You recover this capsule, so you save the 100 that it costs, you get back, right? It's very worth to complete this capsule in flying high and Earth low. And the 2 starting experiments you also complete. The one of them, the barometer, it is biome dependent. So you might think, oh, I need to farm all the biomes. Don't worry about that, right? If you will eventually, because you launch a lot of rockets, you will farm at the biome that you start in, and maybe the biome on the coast next to it, But don't worry about farming everything. There's no need. The biocapsule will carry you throughout the early game. Right? This will give you enough science to research everything you need. Right? So something that you might research is you want post-war rocketry to get an engine, right? You don't want to use the starting A4, the Model 39. It is quite expensive. There's no need for it. You can get a more fun one. You can also skip this, but again, it is one cost. It is the cheapest tech in the game, right? So it's always worth getting. They have the early tracking systems and early science. This lets you do the 5 or the advanced bio contract, and then after that, right, you complete suborbital research, right, and then you research the next program. So you might want to grab post-war material science and the early material science. What you can do is you can grab a contractor that will let you research this faster, right? The contractors, they're minor bonuses to research mostly, and you just hire whoever you want. It is all small bonuses. Okay, and then you're here, right? And once you're here, you have basic rocketry. You can do your light sets launch vehicle. You could also do heavy sets, but light sets, generally speaking, is easier and faster. If you go heavy sets, you might want to grab this one, but if you grab light sets, just basic rocketry, this will let you do the LightSat program, the first launchers. You might want to grab avionics prototypes to upgrade your avionics, and then this is the tech that you will use to make your first LightSat launcher. And then to complete the actual program, you need the electronics research and you need the science. And for the solar panel, the solar probe, right, the solar powered probe, you might need to grab this tech too. There are other ways to do it. The other ways to do it is you can just put a lot more capsules on it, or you can use the Sputnik instead of the science core avionics, because it has a lower power drain. But it is a lot heavier and it is harder, and it is the speedrunning meta. But don't worry about it. You can just grab this node. You will want it anyway, right? If you're not speedrunning, this is good enough. And this will let you do the LightSat launcher with the. It lets you complete it, right? You can also just grab the satellite material science. This will give you isogrid tanks, which will make everything considerably easier and even trivial. So you will have something like this, or you will be researching this, and then you've completed LightSats, and then there is a lot of programs to do, right? And from being in orbit, you get some nice science. You get the mass spectrometer. This gives you around like 10 or 12 science, which is not insignificant. This will carry you through like this tech and half of this tech. And then on satellite era science, you get the Cherenkov, the Geiger-Müller counter, which is a ton of science. You have the magnetometer, the micrometeorite detector too. Do not worry too much about these two, right? You will launch them on future contracts too. You could put them on the science thing. It doesn't matter too much, right? You'll eventually get them. You also get hard drives at some point here, which will help make collecting the science easier, right? That's all later. But where do you go from there? This should give you enough science for the next few techs, but you're still going to be struggling a bit for science. So what you do is you go for the moon. You go for the moon, and for the moon you need lunar range communications. That's a minimum. And what happens is that with this tech, the early avionics, you get a very small amount of power drain. And what that means is you can make your lunar probes quite small, because they don't need a lot of batteries. And if they're solar powered, they don't need a lot of solar power, right? And also you need this anyway, because you need to upgrade your building. And the reason you do lunar probes is that it gives a ton of science, right? You'll want to use the isogrid tanks, and you need to upgrade the engines. You need at least these ones to get a proper first stage engine that is a bit more reliable. And then if you grab 1958, you get the RD-105, RD-0105, and this is roughly what you would use to complete the early the lunar program. And once you do the lunar program, you hit the moon a couple times, gives you a ton of science, gives you like 15 science or 20 or something. It gives you a ton of science every time you hit the moon. You do this 2 or 3 times, and then you also send an orbiter. And the orbiters, when solar powered, with all these experiments on board, they set you up to research so many techs, and you're essentially gonna be a complete liberty to do whatever you want after that point, right? If you then do Earth observation satellites, you will find that you need the next tech node. This one, it gives you a ton more science. A lot of these are worth completing fully. The orbital perturbation experiment is probably the only one that is not worth completing, because it lasts for so long. It's a 10-year experiment, so you need to put them on a ton of satellites to even get close to completing it. The other ones, they're needed for the EOS program. Do the EOS program. It is a ton of science, and you want to do the experiments anyway. And of course, in the launchers, you need EDL, you need early flight control, you need human-rated EDL, and then stability, and everything else for landing. And for the capsules, of course, you need to research the capsules, your basic capsules, else you can't launch people, and that is something you want to do eventually. But again, the trick here is you will want to have something along these lines, right? This is what you go with LightSats. You grab the lunar range communications, and then you go for the moon, and that sets you up. Once you have hit the moon, science is no longer an issue, you'll find, right? And how do you get to this point is you do the biocapsule, you do the mass spectrometer on your first satellite launch, and you complete thermo and barometer at the place where you start. And this should give you enough science. Something about planes is planes. Once you do planes, they're kind of optional. They make you go faster, but they cost a lot more time. If you do planes, you'll find that it's best to just take other people's designs and go with that, because it's a lot of work to design your own. It's a lot more work than designing rockets. And the science from planes basically covers the cost of the tech nodes, and it gives you a little bit of extra science. But what that usually means is that you just go slightly faster through this tech tree, rather than that you actually unlock new options, right? So yeah, that's how you look at the science. Make sure you complete these, and then you'll be set for this sort of career.